Hello, today I'm going to be talking to you about Industrial Wastewater Treatment, a book by author Joseph D. Edwards, Ph.D., PE. This book covers the implementation of wastewater treatment systems for industrial generated wastewater. I have a particular interest in industrial generated wastewater based on my industry experience and didn't want to get into a wastewater treatment system that dealt with municipal treatment of typical household discharges. I found this book very interesting because it put it in a really easy to use format with a book layout that started with a step-by-step process in the first chapter. He sections it out into specific objectives of how to manage your wastewater and implement a treatment system, and the broad scope of the application, and then an analytical breakdown of each step. So the author, Joseph D. Edwards, has a broad range of experience. He has experience in industry, consulting, academia, and government. He is also the co-inventor of patented processes for removing toxic organics and metals from industrial wastewater streams. He holds high degrees with a BS in chemistry, an MS in civil engineering and air resources, and a Ph.D. in civil engineering with environmental sciences and technology. To start the book, he gets into characterizing your particular wastewater. This is the important first step in understanding wastewater treatment systems, as not all wastewaters are the same. So the proper analyzation and assessment of the wastewater generated is an important step. And he looks at setting this up in understanding your processes. Most chemicals used in their state that they're purchased have a clear path for recycling or disposal. Some that are even allowed to go into your wastewater discharge through the city sewer system. Understanding how you add stuff through your processes and what your wastewater becomes is an important aspect. So determining your wastewater management system limitations starts with understanding what can you get rid of in your wastewater. So you're going to want to check with your local regulatory bodies. And you're also going to have to understand as you discharge your wastewater and clean it up, removing the amount of materials that are needed to put it into a treatment system through the village that you're in, you have to understand what other types of waste are going to be produced. You may have other waste produced in wastewater treatment of solids, airs, and other hazardous materials. So you may want to consider recycling services versus an in-house treatment system. And there's also many budgetary constraints that come along with this. By determining your wastewater management alternatives, you can create your best treatment plan. And the best plan for any treatment of wastewater is to not produce it. So understanding what processes you could put in place to reduce your wastewater by using alternative methods or means is your first line of action. The second thing you may consider is just using a wastewater recycling service, where your wastewater is loaded into tankers and hauled to a processing plant that it specializes in your type of wastewater. The book then goes into the description of different treatment processes. And while there's many of it, processes that can happen, really it comes down to chemical treatment, treatment with heat, or filtration of the water to remove the materials in the water that can't be discharged. Chemical treatment includes adding even as simple as a binder that will make the materials clump up that are in there and then settle out, so where you can draft off wastewater that's dischargeable and then have a smaller amount that you have to either reduce again by heat or can be recycled through other means other than a wastewater stream. Heating really just reduces wastewater into a condition that's more condensed in contaminants, but has less volume to recycle. And filtration is another process where you can filter out different wastewater contaminants. Knowing your wastewater, like I said earlier, was an important aspect to this. If you choose the wrong process, you could, say, use filtration with a fat, oil, or grease content and plug the filters rapidly and not be a cost-effective process. So understanding your wastewater, the author describes how you should use other resources for information. You can talk to other shops who create wastewater similar to yours. You can talk to trade associations and see who they have for resources in dealing with your waste discharges. And suppliers of wastewater treatment systems, they can understand your processes and apply past knowledge from other successful implementations of their systems. Then the book moves into how you select your best alternatives. By selecting processes that won't work, you can start to eliminate down and find processes that could work for your system. From there, you would take it to bench test models and try small samples and see if you could scale that up into a sustainable system to deal with the amount of wastewater that you produce. Then you have to consider the other waste produced. So there are going to be solids that could be potentially hazardous, and how are you going to recycle them properly once you've cleaned them out of the water? And then you have to do the cost benefit analysis and back to finding out if you maybe should just be not generating the wastewater or using a recycling service. The book then talks about the proper way to implement a wastewater system using the local regulatory bodies, getting the required permits, creating training materials to properly have staff trained, and then documentation of the system so that it can be maintained and operated correctly. He also talks about working with the suppliers in ways that you can understand the information that they're giving you is correct to implement the wastewater system in your facilities. The references include detailed descriptions of the references that he used, so you can use them to further expand your knowledge in the particular area of wastewater that you need to understand. And then the book wraps up with case studies. I found this really interesting, and I hope to be able to use this even on a small level within the types of waste that we produce and share with other people. Thank you for listening.